back to the show. On the show today, we're really excited as we have journalist, award-winning screenwriter. We have Ron Chepesiuk. Ron, thanks for being on the show today.
Well, thanks for inviting me, Jay.
This is great. Tell our fans and our people where you're calling in from, Ron.
I'm calling in from Rock Hill, South Carolina. It's a little hamlet outside of Charlotte. It's about 20 miles from Charlotte. But I have to tell you, I'm Canadian, by the way. I'm from Thunder Bay. I'm from Thunder Bay. I'm very proud of that. And I've been living most of my life in the U.S., but I still have my heart in Thunder Bay.
Well, that's great. I love that a fellow Canadian writing about something that I also love about true crime fiction, all about the streets. So before we get into that, Ron, maybe tell our viewers a little bit of your background. You know, like you said, you grew up in Thunder Bay. I mean, just like a short sort of overview, and then we'll get into your exciting career.
Well, it's been a meandering career. I grew up in Thunder Bay. I left when I was 19 years old, went to college in the United States, University of Minnesota at Moorhead. And, I'm a product of the 60s. So, the Vietnam War and all that sort of stuff. And I was sort of drifting along. And one day when I was like 28 years old, I decided I got to make something of my career because I was just working all kinds of really crappy jobs. And so I decided I was going to be a librarian. I was either going to be a journalist or a librarian, but I'd never written anything in my life. So I said, I'll take the safe route. So I decided to become a librarian. I went to library school and graduated from there. And
okay, hold on. You went to library school.
Yeah.
What is that?
Library school, that's getting your master's degree in librarianship. It's like getting a master's in history or a master's in poli-sci. It's so I was credentialed, which meant that I could work as a librarian, accredited librarian. So I ended up in Rock Hill and at this university, and I developed a manuscript collection of really interesting documents. The school was a women's college until 1974, and so I developed this women's collection, and I was going along okay, and I was really excited about my career and all that. And then I got a sabbatical to Ireland, and Ireland's really an amazing country. The Irish can talk your head off, but they can't fix anything. And I ended up one day just sitting there in a bar. I remember distinctly. I said, "I'm going to be a writer."
Really?
I decided I said I always wanted to be a writer, but I'm never going to talk about it until I started writing, because I knew a lot of people that ended up saying, "Oh, I'm a writer," but they never written anything.
What took you to Ireland?
Sabbatical. After 7 years, I got a sabbatical from the university, and I went and studied for a graduate diploma at the National University of Ireland.
Wow.
That's Jimmy Joyce, James Joyce's university. I'm very proud of it. So I ended up there spending a year, and near the end of it, that's when I decided to become a writer. So I sat down, and there was this library called the Chester Beatty Library, and I wrote an article about it and sent it off to a library publication. I got published. I was excited and all that. So I said when I came back to the U.S., I was going to spend my free time developing my career as a writer. And I got rejected, and finally I ended up selling this piece on as a profile of this really famous historian, African American historian named John Hope Franklin, and I sold it in Modern Maturity, which at the time was the biggest magazine in the world, and it was for retired people, and that gave me a lot of confidence. And then I developed this career as a magazine writer. And I ended up selling 4,000 magazine articles.
So let's fast forward just a little bit. And how did you fall into the crime genre?
Well, it was really weird because I ended up on a junket, press junket. The Colombia in the late 1980s had a really bad reputation because of Escobar. Remember him, right?
Yeah.
He was criminal, right? And so they set up this junket to invite journalists to come to Colombia to write about Colombia and hopefully improve their image. So I ended up going to Colombia, and on the last day that I was there, I met a woman who became my wife.
Wow!
And I had a date with her, And so I started this correspondence with her. And being the practical guy I was going to write about things while I was there. So I ended up covering the Colombian drug war with Escobar took on the state. So I started writing a whole bunch of articles for that. And then, so that started my reputation as a sort of a crime writer. But then I decided to write a book about the Cali cartel because Escobar was really well covered. The Medellin cartel, which he headed, was well written about, but nobody knew anything about the Cali cartel. So I ended up
So let me
writing.
ask you. Let me ask you this then. So, what did you find? Do you think you found your niche, or it was just a paycheck at the time?
Well, yeah, I was making a lot of I was making a lot of money. I was able to retire early from the job because of the money I was making. Yeah, it was a little bit of both. I mean,
Nice.
I was fascinated by Colombia. It was just an incredible country, and it was going through all kinds of stress because of Escobar and the drug war and all that. And I'm a very practical guy. I decided to write about something that nobody had written about and that I could access.
And
So I ended up
that would have been back in the '80s, right? I guess
this is about 95.
about '95 now.
Yeah,
Okay,
95.
okay,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
okay.
Escobar died in 93.
Is that when he died in
Um,
'93? But he was in the late '80s when he was
yeah.
like
Yeah,
causing
right.
havoc. Yeah.
I was there in the late 80s. I met my wife in 87
Okay.
and we got married in 88. And so yeah, so I ended up covering that and then I got the book done and it was pretty well received. And I said, well, what am I going to do now? And at that time I had left my job at the university and I was writing full time. And I said, well, I know something about crime. So I remember when I was at the university in Atlanta getting my master's, I became hooked on the black exploitation movies.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
the Superfly, Black Caesar, all these movies. And I said, I'm going to write a book about that. I'm going to write a book about that. And I went back and did some research, and I said, "Oh wow, this is really interesting. Harlem has all these gangsters, and nobody had
Yeah.
written anything about it." So I did a book called "Gangsters of Harlem," and uh, the book was well received. I started to get on cable networks, as a sort of a historian. And from there, next book I did was Black Gangsters of Chicago. And then I did that book and I did Gangsters of Miami. And so by that time, I was a crime historian. People
Well,
were,
let's talk about some of the names. Like I wrote down, you got such an extensive career that you've interviewed basically or wrote about everybody, interviewed everybody. So I'm just gonna throw out some names and tell me your point of view. Tell me what your memory about them, or something like that. So let's just say Frank Matthews. Tell people who Frank Matthews is and tell me your point of view on Frank, sort of thing.
I call Frank Matthews the Al Capone of black gangsters. He was the first big independent black gangster. Not many people know about him, but he operated from about 68 to about 73. In 1973, July 2nd, he left the courthouse. He was being arraigned for criminal activity, and he disappeared. And he's never been seen since. There's never been no pictures of him. There's been no snitches that talked about him.
Who
Nothing.
who was his alleged handler? Who was his alleged handler? Frank Matthews.
What do you mean a
Like
handler?
who did he report to?
Oh, he didn't report to anybody. He was a big honcho. You hear about these guys like Frank Lucas, right, and Nicky Barnes.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were small time compared to Frank Matthews.
Now,
Uh,
which one of the gangsters? Tell our viewers the illicit drugs in the coffins coming home.
well, that's Frank Lucas, and I interviewed him for my book on Gangsters of Harlem, and he kept referring to quote his cousin, who's not really his cousin, but he kept referring to him as Atkinson. And I to myself, who is this Ike I mean, he was talking about him. And if you remember the movie American Gangster, there was a
Mm-hmm.
character in there called Nate. He always walked around with the uniform. Well, that was modeled on Ike Atkinson. So, anyways, I went on the internet and I looked up and I found out Ike Atkinson was in prison in Butner Prison in North Carolina, and he's been in prison for like 32 years, on that. And I said, God, and I looked. There was no book on him. I said, I wonder if this guy would be interested in doing a book. So I wrote him a letter. I got his address. I wrote him a letter to the prison, and he answered me and he said, "Yeah, I want to see you." And so I came to see him at Butner, and we hit it off. And he said, when I get out in about a year, I said, would you be interested in working on a book with me about my life? I said, sure, on that then. So that started off uh, my book, Sergeant Smack,
Why
on
don't we do
that.
this? Why don't we take a quick break? And when I
Mhm.
come back, I want you to link up three names: Frank Matthews, Frank Lucas, and Nikki Barnes. But stay
Yeah.
tuned. On the show today, we have journalist, screenwriter, award-winning screenwriter, and crime beat reporter. We have Ron Chepesiuk. Wow, this is a great show. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. We're going to get knee deep into the true crime world. I'm Jay Stoyan. You're watching the Today Show.